My name is Melanie Youngsma, and I am the publisher of the Lansing Journal in Lansing, Illinois, not Lansing, Michigan. We get that a lot. Yeah, the journal has been in existence since 2017, and we've been following the Tiffany Henyard story since 2022 when she was appointed to Thornton Township supervisor. And most of Lansing is in Thornton Township. There's a small part of the southern section that is in Bloom Township, but Thornton Township is the largest township in Illinois, and a lot of Lansing residents are in Thornton Township. So we are directly affected by the decisions being made by the Thornton Township Board at this time. Mm-hmm. So it's of local interest to us. And I have been really amazed at the interest around the country and around the world. We get comments on our videos from Australia and Germany, and it's been a ride. And the general consensus is that nobody can believe this is happening. It really is literally unbelievable. It's amazing that it's gone on this long. It's been 2 years now. And she's so brazen, and the people have been active. You know, the people have been reaching out to higher levels of government for help with this, and the government has been silent. So it's been frustrating.
I'm glad you brought that up, because Governor Pritzker was questioned about the, all of the controversy and all of the investigations that are going down in Dalton.
Monitoring what's going on in Dalton and Thornton Township and leadership there, are you concerned? Taxpayers seem very worried. There's chaos at meetings. What can be done? Could you play a role in stepping in some way? What's your take on the situation?
So I've looked at that question, whether the state should and can play a role. The federal authorities, as you may know, are involved and investigating. I've read that. I think that's a public piece of information. There is an investigation that's been called for, and now I know there was a veto that was overridden that will now allow that investigation to go forward with former Mayor Lori Lightfoot in charge of that. I think that those are two pretty good authorities for looking into this, investigating it, and getting to the truth.
And the state, when you look into it?
We'll support them. Well, we looked at whether we ought to put resources, whether it's state police and their anti-corruption efforts, or asking the Attorney General.
I think that's where it stopped with him. Why do you think that? Why do you think the state has not intervened or come down there and say, well, look, what's going on?
It's the thing that people immediately assume then is that for some reason the higher ups are protecting Tiffany Henyard. That, I mean, on the one hand, that seems likely just because they aren't doing anything. On the other hand, she, to me, does not seem like the kind of person who would have any dirt on somebody. She doesn't seem that politically connected, but I might be naive about all of the politics in Cook County and in Illinois. Mm-hmm. So it is confusing. They're sending emails, they're calling. The people are very involved, and they're just getting no response. Like people, the political chain has kind of washed their hands of Dalton and Thornton Township. And
well, let's go back a few. Let's go back to when Tiffany was, she is the mayor of Dalton. Mm-hmm. And then I think she was appointed or elected. You could tell us about that, to Thornton Township as a supervisor. How is it she can be mayor and supervisor of two different townships at one time, collecting two separate salaries?
Yeah, that's a good question. Dalton is a village, and Thornton Township is a township, and township is a layer of government between village and county. So Dalton is within Thornton Township. There are 17 communities within Thornton Township. Lansing is one, Dalton is one, South Holland. So as supervisor, the township is supposed to be providing services to all 17 of these communities. Tiffany was elected to the position of mayor in Dalton. She ran with some of the trustees who are currently serving. I believe, and I have not followed Dalton politics much, but I believe there was dissatisfaction with the mayor that she replaced. And so she ran on this ticket for change and a more responsive government. And people were excited to have, a young female mayor. This seemed like a fresh start, a new opportunity.
Right.
And from what I understand, it wasn't long before she started, I guess you'd say, abusing her position as mayor.
But so that's the layout as to, how she, can be both mayor because of the level of government. You have township versus village. And Dalton was within the township of Thornton.
Right. It still seems like a conflict of interest to me.
Yeah.
If you're mayor of one village in this township and your supervisor, there seems like a natural tendency to give preference to the village that you're mayor of. But apparently it's not illegal, but it doesn't seem wise to me.
So the night that she got, was she appointed or she was appointed supervisor because the previous supervisor, Frank Zuccarelli, passed away. Right. All right. So there was immediate need to replace that position. And how was she selected? Like, was there a group of people? Was there, an interview process? How did it become Tiffany?
So Frank Zuccarelli passed away in January of 2022, January 3, I believe. So the law is that you have 60 days to appoint a new supervisor. So March 3 was the deadline. And normally this is not a controversial occurrence. It's a fairly simple process. Normally there's a trustee, a senior trustee who, people just agree that why don't you step in and be the supervisor. But we started hearing in February that the Thornton Township Board had not yet chosen someone to appoint to the supervisor position, and the deadline was coming up. So we started attending those meetings and realized the very first board meeting we attended where this discussion was happening, we realized how chaotic the Thornton Township Board was. I think Frank Zuccarelli had been in the supervisor position for so long that the board members were sort of coasting and did not know how to exercise their own leadership. So when they suddenly had to make these decisions and to run a meeting, it was markedly chaotic, and nobody agreed on who the supervisor should be. So they were spending their meetings appointing people, and then you have to second that, and then you have to vote on it. And because it's a board of 4 now, the votes were 2-2.
Yeah.
Or somebody wouldn't second a motion. And so there was a lot of chaos. So on March 1, they again couldn't come to a decision. And I think that meeting ended around 10:30. And you also have to, so the deadline is March 3. March 1, they have a meeting that goes till 10:30. And you need 48 hours notice to have another meeting. So they ended the meeting at 10:30 and announced that the next meeting would be March 3 at 10:30. So to get that 48 hours notice in. So we all showed up at 10:30 on March 3, and then they have until midnight of March 3 to make this appointment. And the process is if the appointment isn't made by the board, then
Right.
it goes to the general township community to put their own nominees up. And
Okay.
the board did not want that to happen, and I'm not
Yeah.
clear on why not. They wanted control of that decision. They didn't want it to go to the public. And that probably would have opened it up to maybe even more chaos, who knows?
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
that's what the timeline was. And even at 10:30, they were putting forth names and trying to get everybody to agree on different names. And most of the names I had heard of, they were familiar people. And they were going in and out of closed session for some reason. And the attorney seemed inappropriately involved. He was speaking to Joyce Washington, who was the senior trustee, and she seemed to be struggling to she was quite old at that time, and I think this whole process had been very stressful for her. He seemed to be advising her, which I'm not sure is appropriate, so that was weird too. And finally, Chris Gonzalez put Tiffany Henyard's name out there.
I nominate Tiffany Henyard for Township Supervisor.
You all are making a mockery out of this for real. This is not a joke. This is not a joke. This is ridiculous. Trustee Jones,
Yes.
Trustee Gonzalez,
Yes.
Trustee Gray Everett,
Yes.
Trustee
She voted yes. And she has to sign the warrant, and then she's got to take the oath in 9 minutes. Let's go.
Put your hands together for your new township supervisor, Tiffany Henyard.
How can she do that? How can she do that?
Y'all can have the mayor, baby. Y'all can have that
That's in the books. That's gone. I did not see that coming.
All right, can I have your attention? Please raise your right hand. Say aye and insert your name.
I, Tiffany Henyard,
Do solemnly affirm
do solemnly affirm
that I will support the Constitution
that I will support the Constitution
of the United States
of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Illinois,
and the Constitution of the State of Illinois,
and that I will faithfully discharge
and I will faithfully discharge
the duties of office
the duties of office
of Township Supervisor
of Township Supervisor of County of Illinois
to the best of my
to
ability.
the best of my ability.
That's sweet it is.
You may make a motion as the president. Can I have a motion?
Can I have a motion to close the meeting? Get a second?
We need a second to close the meeting.
Bravo. I didn't see that coming.
Chris Gonzalez has admitted that he started regretting that decision right away. He
Like, how soon did Chris regret that? Do you know?
that night.
Wow.
He said they went up to, so after the meeting, Tiffany went up to Frank's office and sat in the chair and put her feet on the desk and was kind of gloating about having this new position. And she made reference to the situation in Dalton, and Chris realized then that there were controversies happening in Dalton already. And I think a lot of that had to do with spending and budget. You know, she would get approval to spend a certain amount of money and then spend 3 times that money, and she wasn't communicating with the trustees.
And she was already doing this at Dalton.
Right.
And they didn't know in Thornton.
Right.
Wow.
Right. So Chris was nervous already. I believe she started firing people, township staff, either at her first meeting or her second meeting.
And that's where you guys started your extensive investigations and your journalism and your reporting on what was going on at Thornton, because there was a layoff or a firing with the clerk. And I believe the clerk was locked out of the office. And
The assessor. Yeah.
I'm sorry?
The assessor.
The assessor. Yes, the assessor was locked out of the office, and things and papers were moved around. Tell us about that.
Yeah, the Thornton Township assessor, that's another elected position. So Cassandra Elston has just as much right to be in that position as Tiffany has to be the supervisor. It's an elected position. It does not report to the supervisor. Those are separate positions. And for some reason, Tiffany locked her out of her office. And I think there were some interpersonal conflicts or
Right.
some
Right.
whatever going on. So she was locked out of her office and moved to a cubicle in sort of an open area. And Assessor Elston called the Lansing Journal and let us know what was going on. So we showed up. And we've known Assessor Elston for a long time. She's a friend of Lansing. She comes to Lansing and does presentations about property taxes. She helps people fill out the forms. She has a good reputation in Lansing and throughout the township. She's a public servant. She really embodies that role. And so to see her treated this way by a fellow elected official was strange, to say the
Right.
least, and confusing. So we did cover that story, and I don't think that's been resolved. I think she's still, she doesn't have an office in Thornton Township. So there's just a lot of cattiness going on, and it's not helpful to the people of Thornton Township.
It's not, and it's not helpful to progress in moving the township forward. And, that brings me to my next question. So is Thornton better off now? According to Tiffany, it is. But to you, do you think it's better off now compared to the Frank Zuccarelli days?
I do not think it is, but I have not seen numbers. Supervisor Henyard will make these claims at meetings. She throws out numbers verbally and says she has proof, but she does not provide that proof when asked for it. She doesn't respond to FOIA requests. She doesn't respond to, even people have asked at the meetings, well, can I see that?
Right.
Absolutely. Call
Right.
my office in the morning, and then they call and she's not there. She doesn't answer. So that's suspicious.
Explain to us, I know what a FOIA request is, but to those that don't, explain to us what a FOIA request is. And have you been successful with your request at Thornton Township?
FOIA stands for Freedom of Information Act, and a FOIA request is when a member of the public exercises their right to ask for certain information. And the kind of information that our elected officials create and have has to do with how they're spending money, decisions that they make. Elected officials report to the people. They are elected by the people, and so the public has the right to this information. And you can request it at any time. And there are processes involved. You have to be specific about what you're asking for. The elected body has 5 days to get back to you. And sometimes there can be a charge if they have to do a lot of paperwork.
Right.
When I ask when I submit a FOIA request, I always want it as a PDF. So that's a very simple way to deliver information. There's no cost involved. We have not submitted a lot of FOIA requests to Thornton Township just because the early ones that we were submitting were not getting a response. And
So you guys were originally sending in FOIA requests, but then you weren't getting any response. You weren't getting the information that you were requesting.
right,
And so eventually you guys just stopped sending in the requests.
right. And so when you're not getting a response, you do have, there's a Public Access Bureau, and you can contact the Public Access Bureau, which is part of the Attorney General's office, and let them know that this government body is not responding to requests, or they are violating the Open Meetings Act, or any of these things. And so we have submitted a few requests to the Public Access Bureau, asking them to investigate this and listing the evidence that we have that there was some kind of violation. And that process too is cumbersome because they take 15 days to respond. And usually their response, in our case, their response has been to, when they finally do respond, which can be a month or two later, they sort of warn Thornton Township, like, you better not do this.
Right.
And then Thornton Township might say, okay, we promise not to do it again.
So
There's no teeth in it.
there's no teeth in it. Yeah. Has the FBI made it over to Thornton, or have they pulled information from Thornton regarding Tiffany? Do you know?
My understanding is she is under investigation. I wrote some notes at Dalton and at Thornton Township by the FBI.
Mm-hmm.
And so she hasn't been accused of anything, but they have requested information about payroll and about certain expenses that were charged to taxpayers that might be personal expenses. Employment, there are some employment controversies, use of the credit card. There's been allegedly commingling of funds between Dalton and Thornton Township. Sometimes it seems like she's using Thornton Township money to fund Dalton events.
Right. Well,
travel.
case in point, the trip to the White House, I told.
Right. I think that was a mayor's convention or a mayor's something.
Right.
And it seems like she spent Thornton Township money to be there. Yeah, a lot of confusion.
Right. And so the FBI is here now. They're investigating. That's like the number one question I get. I even have for myself. How long do these investigations take? When will we see? I think people are waiting on YouTube and on Facebook for the moment the FBI comes in, arrest her. Will we see that anytime soon? Is that going to happen? Is it going to be this big, perp walk and stuff? Do you expect that? Is that going to happen?
We want it to be dramatic, don't we?
Yeah.
I keep hoping it will happen at a meeting that I'm covering, but I'm guessing that's not likely. They would probably, show up at her office one business day or something. I don't know how the FBI works, but wouldn't it be great if it were during a meeting when everybody was there?
Yeah. Like, how long did these investigations take? Do you know? You have any history, any inkling?
This one has been more than a year. And everything I've heard is that the FBI is very thorough. And so they take their time to build a case, but then their success rate is 95%. So that's why they take their time. They get all of the evidence they need before actually leveling charges. So, yeah, it's hard to be patient. I don't know what other evidence they could need. But in the meantime, the people are suffering.
What is the public's perception of Tiffany in Thornton Township?
I think that most people see through her. And that's clear on YouTube. The comments that we get on our YouTube videos, the general consensus is, how can she be in office? And even if you don't have the evidence of the credit card charges and the budget deficits and all of that, just the way that she treats people in meetings is, you wouldn't want to vote for somebody like that. You wouldn't want.
Yeah, you're there. How is it in those meetings, live in those meetings? How is it? Is it the tension there?
And her supporters tend to be the people who have won something at Big Bingo or have received free services from her. So they show up. She invites them to meetings. She has personally invited them to sit in on these meetings, and she encourages them to speak up. So they will say, "I love Tiffany. She's so wonderful." And the other people in the room have been at the meetings. They've been following the story. They've been speaking out at public comment, and they are a consistent presence there. And so sometimes those two sides start arguing with each other. And Tiffany does not control the meeting. She likes to give voice to the people who are speaking up for her. And then she likes to shut down the people who are speaking out against her.
All right.
So there's a lot of yelling, and people recognize this. So they're saying, "Hey, you gave her 3 minutes and you're cutting him off early." And there's a lot of chaos.
Who's Keith Freeman? What is his role in Thornton Township?
Keith Freeman was the sort of like the village administrator, but at the township level. And I think he was the village administrator at Dalton too.
Wasn't he also the food pantry coordinator or director or something?
That's Keith Price.
That's Keith Price. Okay. Okay. So you've got Freeman and Price. Okay. Got it.
And Keith Price has been very vocal at the meetings. And part of the problem with Keith Price is that he apparently has been given a new position. He started out as food pantry manager, and then at one meeting, Tiffany told the trustees to get budget information from Keith Price, not from Robert Hunt, but from Keith Price.
And Robert Hunt is the financial director. I've seen him at the meetings. Right.
Yeah. So she apparently promoted Keith Price, and because he was food pantry manager, that salary comes out of the general assistance fund, which Tiffany has control over. At least she does when there's a budget in place. There's all these rules to keep track of, but so she feels like she can do whatever she wants with Keith Price because he's in her budget
circle.
Yeah.
Wow. How come you don't cover Lansing Journal doesn't cover Dalton, specifically the meetings, as extensively as you do with Thornton?
Mainly just it's a function of time. I mean, we are such a small newspaper with small staff, and a lot of our reporters are freelancers, and they are not that interested in politics. so
Yeah.
so I'm the one who gets all of the political stories.
Uh,
And the Thornton Township meetings, they can go 2 or 3 hours.
yeah.
And then I know it's important, but I kind of hate devoting that much attention to this circus because there is so much other good news happening in our community that deserves reporting. And I feel bad that she is stealing attention away from other worthwhile news.
It's the opposite. She says that the media doesn't cover the good things that goes on in Thornton and in Dalton. So, you guys do cover that. I wanted to give you an opportunity to talk about that because she always claims that, you guys are never in the township to cover the good news. It's always the bad news to make her look bad. Is that true?
No, that is not true. Well, for one thing, we are at the meetings because that's where the business of the township is conducted.
Right.
So that's where we should be.
Right.
We go to Lansing Village Board meetings, we go to school board meetings. That's where business happens. That's where media should be.
Right.
But we have tried to cover Thornton Township events, and there was one time one of our reporters was denied access because she presented herself as media. It was a Black History event in February. She showed up to cover it. She was asked for ID. She was asked to sign a non-disclosure agreement, and she wasn't let into the meeting, into the event.
Are these events that she's doing in Thornton? I mean, I know she's doing some in Dalton, but the events that she's doing in Thornton, are they necessary? Was the Kiki Wyatt concert necessary? Is Kiki Wyatt from Thornton Township? Was there something gained from that concert? Because there was a boatload of money spent on that concert.
Yeah. That's a good point. I mean, Thornton Township has always put on events. Frank Zuccarelli was sort of known for, he had a series of days in the park. He would go to each community and throw a party in one of their parks. The Taste of Thornton Township was another popular event. And that's fine when the business of the township is being conducted, but a township it's not just a party center. There is business that needs to be done. So if you're going to get your business done, then you want to be able to celebrate. And, it's fine to have community parties. It's fine to have events, but not at the expense of the business that you're supposed to be conducting. So I think Tiffany enjoys those events. She likes being on Facebook. She likes shooting videos. She likes being the center of attention. And so events give her a way to do that. And that works if your business is being taken care of.
Because you have something to celebrate.
Right.
All right.
From what I understand, she made a point at one meeting of comparing the cost of her event to the cost of a Frank Zuccarelli event.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
She didn't mention that hundreds or thousands of people would come to Frank's events, and she had, I think, fewer than 100 at her Kiki Wyatt event.
Wow.
Yeah. So the cost per person is much higher with Tiffany than with Frank.
So, you mentioned Tiffany and the attention and that she likes to be the center of attention. How do you guys think she got all this attention on YouTube and on TikTok and Facebook? How did you think, how did this local mayor, get this much of attention this quick?
Yeah, in fact, I want to shout out all of the YouTubers who have been following this. I think that has been helpful in this case.
Yeah.
I don't know exactly when it started. When we talked about the meeting where she was appointed, and the Lansing Journal was there, and I think there was one other local newspaper there, or it was a local branch of the Tribune.
Yeah.
We were the only ones there. We had no idea that this was going to become what it is now.
Have you interviewed people in the public, in the community of Thornton, about what's going on at their city hall, at their township hall? Have you discussed with them all of the things that they're going on? Have you interviewed people in the public?
From what I've seen, the public at Thornton Township meetings is trying to, I guess, leverage social media. I mean, a lot of people have their phones up during those meetings.
Yeah.
And anytime something happens, you can see the crowd comes around with their phones up, and they're recording it, they're sharing it to their Facebook channels, to their YouTube channels. And that's it's been interesting. I mean, this has really been a convergence of local media and Chicago broadcast media and YouTube. And I think it was YouTube who showed up. Local media, like you said, we were there from the beginning. YouTube showed up next and really blew it up. The
Right.
Lansing Journal's channel does not have a huge number of followers. You have more followers than we do, and there are YouTubers with hundreds of thousands of followers.
And hold that point, 'cause I tried to get that number up. I think I shared one of your videos. The first video I shared, I said, Lansing Journal, please share, because
Thank you.
you guys were the inventors. You guys started it from day one. So I thought it would be appropriate to give you your flowers like I'm doing now. So those that are listening, please head on over to Lansing Journal when it comes to the Thornton side of Tiffany. So she's getting all this attention. And then now currently, one of the city council, one of the trustees on the board resigned, Mr. Jerry Jones.
Yeah.
He resigned. Now, this councilman, he was very low key. He seemed like he was very frustrated with all the things that were going on. When it came to vote, it was just a long drawn out because he didn't know which direction to vote. So why do you think he resigned, or what was his official resignation? Do you know, or why do you think he resigned?
It's probably not wise for me to speculate.
Yeah.
I think there may have been pressure from the administration. And also his son was working at the food pantry and had notified Keith Price of mice in the warehouse or something, and Keith Price didn't take care of that, so the son notified is it OSHA or something, and so there's this lawsuit and then he was fired, or he was punished somehow. I don't know if he was fired, but he was punished somehow. So now there's a lawsuit between Jerry Jones' son, who's also named Jerry Jones, and Keith Price or Thornton Township. So I'm sure that complicates things in the Jones family. It's a mess, and it's probably not, I mean, who can blame the guy for resigning? It's a stressful position. It's a mess right now.
It's split now. It was originally 5 members. Now it's 4.
There's 4 trustees and the supervisor.
So it's 4 trustees and a supervisor. So the supervisor breaks the tie, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
So now there's 3 and a supervisor.
Right. So trustee Darlene Gray Everett has been voting with Supervisor Henyard on everything. And trustees Carmen Carlisle and Chris Gonzalez have been voting against. And it's not really fair to say they're voting against the supervisor. They're voting for things that they think are healthy for the community.
Right.
And Jerry Jones had started voting with them. So they had a majority. And then there was a meeting where he was absent. This was before he resigned, but he was absent from the meeting. And I think, and Trustee Gray Everett was also absent. So it was just Carmen Carlisle, Chris Gonzalez, and Supervisor Henyard.
Right.
And so you would think they had a majority. They were voting. She was voting against them. And then we learned later that those votes don't count because any votes where it was 2-1 did not count, because on a 5-person board, you need 3 votes to pass
Right.
something new. So even though they had a quorum, the votes only counted if all 3 of them were voting together.
So who selects the new trustee? Who appoints the new trustee to replace Jerry Jones?
Supervisor Henyard.
Wow. It was a pressure to remove Jerry, because of all the stuff that may have, and this is just alleging, we're just alleging,
Right.
there was pressure against Jerry to resign and to make room for Tiffany to come in and put someone that she may want.
That is how it looks.
Wow.
That is how it looks. And yeah.
And the board doesn't, like Chris and Carmen Carlisle, Chris Gonzalez and Trustee Carlisle's, they can't vote or they have no say in it. Tiffany has the sole power to appoint someone to replace Jerry Jones.
That is a good question, and I should look that up. That it might need board approval, but I think if it will end up in a tie.
Yeah.
With Darlene and Tiffany voting against Carmen and Chris. And then I think it probably, I don't know what happens in a tie, but it probably goes to Tiffany. I'll have to look at all the rules of.
Yeah, we'll follow up on that, and I'll put some in the comment section. But that's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. Is there a timeline to when they have to get this done to replace Mr. Jones?
That's another good question.
Yeah,
I wonder if they have 60 days.
Yeah, I'm gonna look that up. I'll definitely follow back up in the comment section with that. Let's move over to Dalton real quick, because I know you don't, you guys are not involved in Dalton so much as you are with Thornton, but Tiffany's made some, radical changes over there after being told not to by a judge.
Right.
And
how can that happen?
How can that happen? Like, who would have the chutzpah to do that? And is she in jeopardy of being in contempt of court over in Dalton? Because the judge specifically told her, you cannot appoint someone to this position. Maybe you can go into more about that, but she was told by a judge, you cannot appoint anybody right now. And she went ahead and did it anyway. And so do you think she's going to be like, what's the word about that out there?
So I think she appointed a chief of police and a village administrator. And both of the people that she chose were controversial people. And I think the reason this is controversial is because those staff positions require a board vote. Like, those are not appointments; those are board responsibilities. So she ignored the process and just said she could appoint these people, and they showed up to work, and they're acting like they have these jobs. So it's the process that I think is what's in dispute. And contempt of court that's an interesting charge. Maybe that is what it is.
Yeah. I'm not sure if that means that she will be arrested, but there may be a fine or something that the judge may throw at her for not following his or her instructions. Reality Check TV, definitely got to give him some flowers. He's been doing a lot of videograph work with his, camera and stuff and his equipment and stuff. So I just want to give Reality Check TV their shout out because I normally watch them. But you're there and you don't go live. How come? How come you're not live at the meetings?
Yeah, and I'm glad too that Reality Check TV is there streaming it live. I don't have the capability to, if you go live, then you don't have that video file. So you have to make a choice to go live or to record it. So I have chosen to record it, and then like you, I go back to my computer and I rewatch it, and that's when I'm putting in those labels, who's speaking, what motions are being made. And people have told me they find that helpful.
Extremely helpful.
And I
Extremely.
find it helpful too, because I have come across things, because those meetings are so chaotic, I have come across things afterward when I'm reviewing the video, like, oh, this never got voted on. This was, a motion was made and was seconded, and then there was discussion, and then we never came back to the vote. And that only becomes clear when you're watching the video later.
Later, after the fact.
Right.
Yeah. So
that's
good.
the role that we've chosen to play rather than live streaming. And people find that helpful. And as long as people find it helpful, we'll continue to do that.
There's an election going on next because she just made an announcement on Facebook that she's going to be rerunning for mayor in Dalton. What is she up for supervisor in Thornton?
Both of those positions will be elected in April of 2025.
Both.
Yeah. I have not seen her announce for supervisor.
Okay.
Which is surprising to me.
Yeah, because that's pretty much
funny.
where she claims she's done a lot of success. The surplus, the events,
Yeah. So I'm not sure what her strategy is, but she did announce that she's running for mayor of Dalton again.
All right.
And so you asked what's next. I am hoping, like we've been talking about, there is so much attention on Tiffany Henyard, and she's very watchable. She's so brazen, she's so outrageous. It makes for good YouTube, it makes for good TV. My concern is, even if she is not elected, if she is pulled from office, if she ends up in jail, whoever is next might not be that outrageous, might not be that watchable, but still might be corrupt.
Right.
So if it's not going to make good TV, will it get the attention it needs? But what helped in this case is the attention. And if you can be corrupt and not be brazen about it. So, what happens then? And that's the importance of local media, that we will be there making our community aware, even if our YouTube community does not stay tuned through when it becomes more boring. But we'll still be there reporting. And that's what's next for the Lansing Journal.
And again, I've told you, offline and online, you guys are doing an amazing job. With what little resources you guys have. Where can people donate to Lansing Journal?
We have a giving form on our website. It's thelansingjournal.com/support. And all of that money goes directly into the journalism. We do not have buildings. We don't have presses. It's all journalism. So
Digital.
feel good about your donation.
All right. Absolutely. Well, listen, again, Melanie, you guys are doing a great job in covering all this. I wish you much success. I just want to thank you so much for spending this little bit of time with me on this Saturday morning.
Thank you, A.K. Cole. I appreciate the opportunity to share the story and to clear up confusion.
Yeah.
And meet you face to face. How nice.
Yeah. But overall, how is Thornton, though? How is it there? I'm going to try to get out there. I got to get to Flint first. Then I'm going to hit Dalton. But, and Thornton. But how is it out there? Like, what's there to do in Thornton?
There's, well, because Thornton Township comprises 17 communities, there's a lot to do, and there's a wide variety. There's a
Right.
wide range of demographics and economics and opportunities here in Thornton Township.
That's awesome. Listen, I ain't gonna keep you too long. Ladies and gentlemen, let's give it up for our good friend Melanie Youngsma.
Very good.
Aha, over at Lansing Journal. Let's give it up. Thank you so much, Melanie, for spending your time with us this Saturday morning.
Thank
And
you,
it's-
AK Cole. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, did you want to add anything or before we sign off?
Support local news, support YouTube news.
Mhm.
There are a lot of options, and choose wisely who to spend your time with. Appreciate the work you're doing, AK Cole. Keep it up.
Yeah.
It's important.
Yeah, we're gonna follow up. I'm gonna circle back with you within a couple of months or weeks, just checking to see how things are going. And we're gonna start a series of interviews. In fact, those that follow me for Flint, I'm gonna be following up with Councilwoman Tanya Burns regarding last Friday's meeting, which was extremely heated. So those that watch Flint meetings, you'll definitely, it'll be live too.
Ooh.
So yeah, with Tanya Burns. So you'll be able to post questions and I'll be able to answer those questions. So look for that coming up next week. So listen, Melanie, this is it. Goodbye. I ain't gonna keep you. Thank you for answering those questions. Keep us updated. I'll keep everyone else updated. If you haven't already, go to Lansing, LANSING Journal YouTube. Right?
Yes.
Cool.
Yeah.
You're in there. Melanie, thank you so
Thank
much.
you, AK.